In a galaxy at war, the once mighty fleet of an alien monarch named Queen Thalia floated like a ghost among the stars, her ships battered and scarred from relentless battles, the void surrounding them, filled with the echoes of dying engines and fading hopes. The rival empire known as the Zarthans had launched a surprise attack, catching Thalia off guard, their ships descending like a swarm of locusts, tearing through the defenses of her fleet. As the holographic display flickered in the war room, Thalia's advisors watched in grim silence, the blue and silver of their ships contrasting against the dark red of the enemy's onslaught. The numbers were staggering, each report of destruction hitting like a blow to the gut. Thalia clenched her fists, her sharp claws digging into the metal table, a mix of anger and despair boiling within her. She had ruled for decades with strength and cunning, but now her kingdom was crumbling. She could feel the weight of her people's expectations pressing down on her shoulders. They had relied on her to protect them. And now she stood on the brink of failure. The thought twisted her stomach as she struggled to maintain her composure in front of her council. Her chief advisor, Lord Eric, spoke first, his voice a low rumble filled with concern. "My queen, we must retreat to the outer rim, regroup, and reinforce our defenses," he suggested, his eyes darting nervously as the latest reports flashed on the screen. But Thalia shook her head. She could not afford to show weakness, not now, not when everything was at stake. "We cannot retreat, Eric," she replied, her voice steady, despite the turmoil within. "We would be leaving our home unprotected, and the Zarthans would crush any remnants of our forces. We must find another way." As the tension in the room mounted, she felt a spark of an idea forming, a risky and unconventional plan that could change the tide of battle. She gathered her thoughts and addressed her council again. "We need allies, strong ones, allies who can turn the tide against the Zarthans." Her gaze hardened with determination. The room fell silent as her advisors exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, Eric spoke up. "My queen, there are few who would ally with us after our recent losses, and even fewer who could provide the strength we need." "What about the humans?" Thalia suggested. The room erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Humans were a wild card in the galaxy, unpredictable and often reckless, but they had proven themselves in previous conflicts. Their resilience was legendary. If we can gain their trust and convince them to fight for us, it could tip the scales. One advisor raised an eyebrow. "Queen, are you suggesting we offer them our entire fleet in exchange for a single human vessel?" Thalia nodded firmly. "Yes. If we forfeit our fleet to the humans, they may see the value in joining us. They could lead our forces. Their cunning and creativity in battle could be the very advantage we need." The idea hung in the air, heavy with implications. Her advisors looked at her with a mix of fear and intrigue. It was an audacious move, one that could either save them or seal their doom. But Thalia felt a flicker of hope in her chest. This was a gamble worth taking. The fate of her people depended on it. She would do whatever it took to protect them, even if it meant putting everything on the line. With newfound resolve, she stood tall. "My council, we will reach out to humanity. We will offer them everything in exchange for their aid. Let us send our message and hope they respond before it is too late." As the news of Queen Thalia's audacious plan spread throughout her court, the atmosphere shifted from despair to a tentative spark of hope. The council gathered in a war room, dominated by screens displaying the chaos of the ongoing battle. Thalia's proposal hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Thalia addressed her advisors with renewed vigor. "Our envoy will carry a message to Earth," she declared, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "We will offer them our fleet as a sign of our commitment and faith in their abilities. If they accept our proposal, we may yet turn the tide against the Zarthans." Lord Eric shifted uneasily in his seat. "My queen, the humans have their own conflicts and interests. Will they truly risk everything for a fleeting alliance with us? We have not exactly proven ourselves worthy of trust." Thalia met his gaze with fierce determination. "They are known for their resilience and unpredictability. Perhaps that very quality will resonate with them. We need to present our offer with sincerity and urgency." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "We must send our best emissary, someone who can communicate our desperation and hope." As the council debated potential candidates, a young lieutenant named Rena stepped forward, her eyes shining with determination. "My queen, I volunteer to be your emissary. I have studied human culture and their military strategies. I believe I can convince them to join our cause." Thalia regarded her with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Very well, Rena, but know this: the task ahead is perilous, and you must be prepared for their skepticism. Humanity is known for its independence and distrust of alien alliances." Rena nodded, her resolve unshaken. "I understand, my queen, but I believe in our cause. If we can show them the dire nature of our situation, they may see the value in joining forces." With Rena appointed as the envoy, the council worked through the details of the message they would send. Thalia meticulously crafted the words that would convey both desperation and hope, highlighting the strength of their combined forces. If humanity would join them, they could stand against the looming threat of the Zarthans. As the transmission was prepared, the atmosphere in the war room grew tense. Thalia felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, knowing that the future of her people rested on this one communication. She closed her eyes for a moment, seeking clarity before stepping forward to address her council one last time. "We are at a crossroads," she began. "We can either continue down this path of destruction, or we can take a bold step toward a united front with humanity. If we succeed, we will not only save ourselves, but create a powerful alliance that could change the galaxy forever." With her speech concluded, the envoy was dispatched. Rena boarded a sleek alien shuttle equipped with advanced communication technology. Her heart raced with anticipation as she prepared for the journey to Earth. She felt the weight of her mission pressing on her, but also a flicker of excitement at the possibility of forging an alliance that could alter the course of history. As the shuttle entered hyperspace, Rena glanced back at her home world, the vibrant colors of her planet fading into the distance. She could only hope that the humans would see the value in Thalia's bold offer, that they would respond with strength and courage, and that together they could rise against the Zarthans. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Rena was determined to fight for her people and to prove that even in the darkest of times, unity could forge a path to salvation. She would do everything in her power to convince humanity to join them before it was too late. As Rena's shuttle glided through hyperspace, the vast expanse of the galaxy stretched before her, each star a distant beacon of hope and uncertainty. She had studied humanity from afar, but nothing could prepare her for the gravity of her mission. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance. When the shuttle emerged from hyperspace, she found herself orbiting Earth, a vibrant blue planet teeming with life and activity. The contrast to her own world was striking. She activated the communication systems, sending a transmission to Earth's military command, a mixture of excitement and anxiety coursing through her. Moments later, the screen flickered to life, revealing a stern-faced human general surrounded by officers. The command center buzzed with activity, and Rena felt a surge of nerves as she introduced herself. "General, my name is Lieutenant Rena of the Aelorian Fleet. I come bearing an urgent message from Queen Thalia." The general's brow furrowed as he leaned closer, his expression a blend of skepticism and curiosity. "Go on." He commanded, the hum of machinery surrounding him a constant reminder of the stakes at play. Rena took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "This is a matter of life and death for both our peoples," she began. "We are on the brink of annihilation. Our fleet has been devastated by the Zarthan Empire. We cannot defend ourselves alone, but we believe that an alliance with humanity could turn the tide." The general exchanged glances with his advisors before responding. "I'm listening, but you must understand that we have our own battles to fight. Our resources are stretched thin. We cannot simply abandon our priorities for an uncertain partnership." Rena pressed on her heart, pounding with urgency. "If you reject our offer, you risk losing not just our fleets, but the entire sector to the Zarthans. Their conquest will not stop at my people. They will come for Earth next." She emphasized the implications of their alliance. There was a moment of silence as the general considered her words. Then he leaned back in his chair and asked, "What exactly is your proposal?" Rena felt a surge of hope and confidence as she laid out the terms. "We offer our entire fleet as a sign of our commitment and faith in humanity. If you agree to lead our forces, we can combine our strengths, we can strategize, and fight together to repel the Zarthan threat." The room fell silent as the human officers exchanged murmurs of disbelief. The audacity of her proposal hung in the air. It was a bold gamble, but the general's eyes narrowed with calculation. After a long pause, he responded, "We need time to discuss this internally. I cannot make a decision on behalf of Earth without consulting my superiors." Reyna felt the weight of disappointment, but understood the caution. She nodded. "I will await your decision, but I urge you to act quickly. The Zarthans are relentless, and we have little time left." As the transmission ended, Reyna took a moment to collect herself, gazing out at the blue planet below. She felt the enormity of the challenge. Before her, the human leaders had their own fears and priorities, but she believed in the strength of her queen's vision. Meanwhile, back on her homeworld, Queen Thalia anxiously awaited news of Reyna's mission. Pacing the war room, her council's skepticism hung heavy in the air. Would humanity truly come to their aid, or would they turn their backs on a desperate plea for help? Days passed with little communication, tension mounting with each report of further Zarthan advances. Thalia knew that time was not on their side. The survival of her people depended on forging a bond with the humans. She could only hope that Reyna's determination and the urgency of their situation would sway the hearts of Earth's leaders. The fate of both worlds rested on a knife's edge, and Thalia's resolve hardened. She would do whatever it took to secure their future and to unite against the looming darkness of the Zarthan Empire. As Reyna waited for a response from Earth, her thoughts raced with the implications of her mission. She had delivered Queen Thalia's desperate plea, but would it be enough to sway humanity to act? Time was slipping away, and each passing moment felt like a countdown to disaster. Back on Earth, the general gathered his top advisors in a secure briefing room. The air was thick with tension as they reviewed Reyna's transmission. The holographic display flickered with images of the battered Aelorian fleet and the looming threat of the Zarthan Empire. The urgency of the situation was clear, but so were the risks involved. "We have to consider the implications of aligning with an alien fleet," one advisor cautioned, his brow furrowed. "What if they betray us, or if their technology is inferior? We could lose everything." The general leaned forward, his gaze intense. "The stakes are too high to ignore. We've seen the Zarthans conquer world after world. If we do not act, we may find ourselves fighting them on our home soil." Another officer interjected, "But at what cost? We can't afford to stretch our forces any thinner. We have ongoing conflicts of our own, and the public will not support a full-scale alliance with aliens without a compelling reason." The general sighed, weighing the options. He understood their concerns, but something about Reyna's conviction had struck a chord with him. "We have to be strategic," he said, finally turning to face them. "If we can leverage this alliance to our advantage, it could provide the reinforcements we desperately need and bolster our own defenses against the Zarthans." As the discussion continued, Reyna remained aboard her shuttle, anxiously monitoring communications. She had faith that the human leaders would understand the gravity of the situation, but uncertainty gnawed at her. Her people were counting on her to succeed. Then, just as she was beginning to lose hope, an urgent transmission beeped to life. The general's face appeared on her screen. "We have made a decision," he began, his tone serious but resolute. "We will accept your proposal, but under strict conditions." Reyna's heart raced as she listened intently. The general continued, "You will not be allowed to command our forces. We will lead this operation with your fleet supporting us. We need to ensure that our interests remain protected." Reyna nodded her understanding, though she felt a twinge of disappointment. She recognized the necessity of their caution. "We will follow your command," she replied firmly, "but I assure you my people will fight with honor and determination alongside you." The general studied her for a moment, then added one more condition. "We need to assess your fleet's capabilities before we fully commit. We cannot send our forces into battle without knowing what we're working with." Reyna's resolve strengthened. This was the opportunity they needed. She agreed to their terms and immediately began preparations to return to Aeloria. With the humans' conditions relayed, she felt a mix of hope and trepidation as she set her course. Back on Aeloria, Queen Thalia received the news with a mixture of relief and determination. The humans would stand with them, but their terms were a reminder of the delicate balance of power between their two peoples. She called a meeting with her council to discuss their next steps. "We must prepare our fleet for inspection," Thalia instructed her advisors. "We need to demonstrate our strength and capabilities. if we are to gain the trust of humanity. One advisor raised a concern, "My queen, what if they find our technology lacking? What if they refuse to cooperate after assessing our fleet?" Philia squared her shoulders with resolve. "We will show them the best of what Aloria has to offer: our courage, our tenacity, and our advanced weaponry. We must convince them that our alliance is mutually beneficial." With a clear plan in place, Philia rallied her people, preparing for the inspection and for the impending battle against the Zarthans. Her heart burned with determination. They would not only fight to survive, but to prove that unity was their greatest weapon. As Rina's shuttle landed back on Aloria, she felt the weight of her mission pressing on her, but also a glimmer of hope. They had gained a crucial ally, and now they must prove themselves worthy of that trust. As they prepared for the challenges ahead, the future of their worlds lay in the balance, and they were ready to face it together. As Rina stepped off her shuttle, she was greeted by the crisp air of Aloria, and the palpable tension that enveloped the royal compound. Soldiers moved with purpose, their expressions a mix of determination and anxiety. The fate of their alliance hung on the impending inspection of their fleet by the human forces. Queen Philia awaited her in the war room, her regal presence commanding, and fierce. Rina quickly reported on the outcome of her mission. "The general has agreed to join forces, but they will lead the operation. We must prepare for their assessment of our fleet." Philia nodded, her expression unwavering. "I expected as much. They are cautious beings, but we will prove our worth. We have trained for this moment, and we cannot afford to falter." She turned to her council, who had gathered to hear the news. "They must see the strength of our technology and our resolve." Rina felt a surge of pride as she recalled the training exercises she had witnessed among her people. They had honed their skills and adapted their strategies in anticipation of this day. They were ready to showcase their abilities and to stand as equals with the humans. In the hours that followed, preparations intensified. Engineers and pilots scrambled to ensure that every ship in the fleet was battle-ready. Rina joined her fellow pilots in the hangar as they performed final checks on their vessels. The air buzzed with excitement and tension. Rina approached a group of pilots discussing strategies. "We must highlight our agility and advanced targeting systems," she urged. "We need to show the humans that we can complement their strength, not overshadow it." A seasoned pilot named Kale chimed in. "We also need to be prepared for their questions. They will scrutinize our technology, looking for weaknesses. If we falter, it could jeopardize everything." Rina nodded, taking in his words. As they moved from ship to ship, she could see the resolve in her fellow pilots' eyes, each of them aware of the stakes, but also eager to prove themselves. She felt a shared sense of purpose binding them together. Meanwhile, Queen Philia stood on the observation deck, overlooking the fleet, her heart heavy with the weight of responsibility. She had made a bold choice to offer their entire fleet to humanity, and now it was time to show that decision was not made in vain. She turned to her chief advisor. "Are we ready for the human delegation to arrive?" Eric nodded. "The ships are prepared, and our pilots are eager to demonstrate their skills." Just then, a signal echoed through the air, announcing the arrival of the human inspection team. Rina's heart raced as she and her fellow pilots gathered to greet them. She stood tall, feeling the weight of her mission, as the human ships descended from orbit, their sleek designs contrasting with the bulkier Alorian vessels. As the humans disembarked, Rina studied their faces. They were a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The general stepped forward, flanked by a team of officers, his gaze sharp and assessing. Rina took a step forward. "We welcome you to Aloria, General," she said, her voice steady as she gestured toward the fleet before them. "Our ships are at your disposal. We are ready to demonstrate our capabilities." The general nodded, though his expression remained inscrutable. "We appreciate your hospitality, Lieutenant Rina. We expect full cooperation during our inspection, and any demonstration of your technology must be precise and unambiguous." Rina felt a spark of determination in her chest. They would show the humans exactly what they were capable of. She motioned for the pilots to follow her as they led the humans to the central command ship, where the fleet's advanced systems were displayed. As the inspection began, Rina watched closely. She knew that every detail mattered. They needed to impress the humans and prove that they could be trusted allies. Her heart raced as they demonstrated their targeting systems and maneuverability, showcasing the precision that had been honed through countless training exercises. But amidst the demonstrations, the pressure mounted. Each evaluation brought with it the risk of exposing their vulnerabilities. Rena exchanged glances with her fellow pilots. They were in this together, and failure was not an option. With every passing moment, they fought to secure the trust of their new allies. Knowing that the looming threat of the Zarthan Empire awaited them, they were determined to rise to the occasion to prove that their alliance was not only necessary but essential for survival in a galaxy filled with danger and uncertainty. As the inspection continued, Rena could feel the tension in the air thickening. The human delegation scrutinized every detail of their technology and tactics, their faces betraying little emotion, but their eyes were sharp, and assessing the stakes had never felt higher. Rena stood alongside her fellow pilots, ready to demonstrate their agility in flight. She watched as the general and his team conferred quietly, their expressions unreadable. Every moment felt like a test of not only their capabilities, but their very worth as allies. Finally, the time came for the aerial demonstration. Rena climbed into her cockpit alongside her fellow pilots, each of them prepared to showcase the full potential of the Aelorian fleet. As they powered up their ships, she could hear the hum of engines and feel the adrenaline pulsing through her veins. In the command center, the general spoke into his communicator. "We're ready for the demonstration," he announced, his tone firm. "The Aelorian pilots are about to showcase their maneuverability and combat capabilities." Rena's heart raced as she took her place in the formation, her fellow pilots flanking her. As they launched into the sky, the bright blue of Eloria's atmosphere enveloped them, a canvas for their display of skill. As they soared higher, Rena felt a rush of exhilaration. They executed a series of intricate maneuvers, diving and climbing through the sky. In perfect synchronization, the Aelorian ships moved like a ballet of war, each pilot pushing their limits to impress their human counterparts. But as the demonstration progressed, Rena's instincts kicked in, and she noticed a faint blip on her radar. A small Zarthan scout ship had slipped through their defenses, its sensors likely picking up the human presence. She felt a chill run down her spine. "General, we have an unidentified vessel approaching." Rena's voice broke through the communication channel. As she signaled her fellow pilots to maintain formation, her mind raced. They couldn't let the Zarthans catch them off guard. The general's voice crackled back with urgency. "Scramble your ships and prepare for engagement," he ordered, his tone now commanding. The tension in the air shifted from performance to survival. Rena took immediate action, calling out commands to her squad as they adjusted their formation, splitting into two groups to flank the incoming threat. They had trained for this moment, but the reality of combat was a different beast entirely. As the Zarthan scout ship drew closer, its weapons charged, Rena felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders. This was their chance to prove their capabilities not just to the humans but to themselves. With a series of quick maneuvers, Rena and her team engaged the Zarthan ship, their targeting systems locking on the enemy vessel. As they unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, the shots illuminated the sky like streaks of lightning. The Zarthan ship retaliated, its weapons firing back, but Rena's squad had anticipated its movements. They danced through the air, dodging blasts and returning fire with precision that left the humans in awe. Rena felt a surge of adrenaline as they coordinated their attacks, striking at the weak points of the Zarthan vessel. They moved as one fluid entity, a testament to their training and their resolve. Within moments, the Zarthan scout ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, the shockwave reverberating through the air. Rena's heart raced as she and her squad reformed their positions, breathing heavily, but exhilarated by the victory. The general's voice crackled over the comms. "Well done, Aelorian pilots," he acknowledged, his tone now a mix of respect and surprise. "You have proven your combat capabilities and your ability to adapt under pressure." Rena felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had done it. They had showcased their skills in the heat of battle and earned the respect of their new allies. She exchanged triumphant glances with her fellow pilots, their camaraderie solidified in that moment. As they returned to base, the reality of their alliance began to settle in. They were no longer just two separate entities, but a unified force ready to face the challenges ahead together. Their bond strengthened in the crucible of combat, and the looming threat of the Zarthan Empire no longer felt insurmountable. It felt like the beginning of something greater than themselves. As the Aelorian pilots returned to their base, the atmosphere buzzed with exhilaration. Rena could feel the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Their successful engagement with the Zarthan scout ship had changed the dynamics of their alliance. The humans no longer viewed them as mere partners, but as formidable allies. General's orders echoed through the comms as he called for an immediate debriefing in the command center. Rena and her fellow pilots quickly disembarked their ships, still high from the adrenaline of battle, their hearts racing with a mix of pride and relief. As they entered the command room, the general was waiting alongside his officers, his expression now one of respect and determination. "The demonstration you executed today was impressive." He began, his tone serious but tinged with admiration. "It showed not only your skill but your willingness to stand united against our common enemy." Rena felt a swell of pride as she exchanged glances with her fellow pilots. It was a pivotal moment in their budding alliance, and they had proven themselves capable of rising to the occasion. "We need to capitalize on this momentum." The general continued, turning to a holographic display that showed the layout of the surrounding sectors. "We have intelligence suggesting that the Zarthans are planning a large-scale offensive. Soon, if we can strike first, we can disrupt their plans and gain a strategic advantage." Thelia stepped forward, her gaze steady and focused. "I agree. We must act quickly while we have the element of surprise. We can use our combined fleets to hit their supply lines and weaken their forces before they even reach our territories." Rena felt the energy in the room shift as the officers began discussing strategies, their voices a whirlwind of ideas and plans. She could see the human commanders engaging with her fellow pilots and Aelorian officers brainstorming tactics that blended both cultures. After several hours of intense discussion, they settled on a plan. The Aelorian fleet would conduct a series of hit-and-run operations targeting vulnerable Zarthan supply ships, while the humans prepared for a larger ground offensive. This approach would keep the Zarthans off balance and prevent them from mounting a cohesive attack. Rena felt a surge of excitement as they finalized their strategy. They were no longer just an alien race seeking help. They had forged a true partnership built on trust and shared goals. It was a step toward a brighter future for both their peoples. The following day, the combined fleet gathered in a vast formation above Aeloria, ready to launch their offensive. As Rena suited up, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, but alongside her were pilots who had proven their worth and bravery. She knew they would face whatever came their way together. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Rena sat in her cockpit, focusing on her breathing, her mind racing with thoughts of their mission. They would strike at the heart of the Zarthan supply lines and show them that they were no longer the underdogs, but a united force. Emerging from hyperspace, the fleet arrived at their first target, a Zarthan supply convoy moving sluggishly through the sector. The sight of the enemy ships ignited a fire within Rena. She felt a thrill of anticipation as they prepared for their first strike. General's orders echoed in her comms as he instructed the Aelorian pilots to take the lead. Their ships surged forward in a coordinated attack as they unleashed a barrage of weaponry upon the unsuspecting Zarthans. The first shots fired rang out like thunder across the void. Rena's heart raced as they engaged the enemy ships. The Zarthans scrambled to respond, but the element of surprise was on their side. Aelorian ships moved with agility and grace, weaving through enemy fire while delivering devastating blows. Rena coordinated with her squad as they targeted the Zarthan vessels. Her adrenaline surged as she called out commands, weaving through the chaos of battle. Every moment felt electric. They were a well-oiled machine working together to dismantle the enemy. One by one, the Zarthan ships began to fall, their supply lines crumbling under the combined assault of Aelorian ingenuity and human strategy. Rena felt the exhilaration of victory wash over her as they pressed on. But in the depths of the fray, a sense of urgency loomed. They had to make this count. Their success could change the course of the war, and the future of both their races depended on their courage and determination. As they fought side by side, against the encroaching darkness. The battle raged on as Rena and her squad pressed deeper into the heart of the Zarthan supply convoy. The coordination between the Aelorian and human ships was seamless, each pilot playing to their strengths. The air was electric with the sounds of weaponry, and the hum of engines, their unity transforming the chaos into a powerful force. Rena called out commands as they executed precise maneuvers targeting vulnerable Zarthan ships. The strategy they had developed paid off as their agile Aelorian ships flanked the heavier Zarthan vessels, cutting through enemy defenses. Like a hot knife through butter, the thrill of the fight coursed through her veins. But amid the exhilaration, Rena remained acutely aware of the stakes. This was not just a battle for resources, it was a fight for survival. The Zarthans would retaliate, and they needed to strike hard and fast before the enemy could regroup. As they advanced, a Zarthan battleship loomed in the distance, its silhouette menacing against the backdrop of stars. Rena's heart sank. They had anticipated this ship would be the linchpin of the enemy's defenses, and it was now on a direct course to intercept them. General Rena shouted into the comms, "We need to take out that battleship, or it will cut our forces to shreds." "Understood," the general replied, his voice resolute. "We'll coordinate an all-out attack on its weak points. Aelorian pilots, you take the lead while we provide covering fire." Rena felt the weight of responsibility settle over her, but she was determined to rise to the occasion. Rallying her squad, she pushed her ship forward, weaving through enemy fire. As they closed in on the battleship, its weapons unleashed a torrent of energy blasts that lit up the void. "Stay focused," she urged her fellow pilots. "We can do this." As they drew closer, Rena's heart pounded in her chest. They executed a series of daring maneuvers, dodging incoming fire and positioning themselves for a coordinated strike. She signaled her squad to flank the battleship from both sides, while the human ships provided suppressive fire. "Now," Rena shouted as they unleashed their weapons in unison. A torrent of plasma bolts tore into the battleship's hull, the impact resonating through the fabric of space. But the Zarthan vessel retaliated with a violent shudder, its shields flickering under the onslaught. "It won't hold much longer," the general's voice came through the comms, urging them onward. "Keep pressing the attack." Rena felt the adrenaline surge as they pressed the advantage, dodging enemy fire and pushing their ships to the limit. The Zarthan battleship was in turmoil, its crew scrambling to regain control while her squad worked to exploit its weaknesses. With one final push, Rena coordinated a devastating barrage, her squad converging on the battleship's main weapons array. The explosion was monumental, engulfing the ship in a blinding light. A triumphant cheer echoed through the comms as they watched the Zarthan battleship crumble before them. The tide of battle shifted as the remaining Zarthan forces faltered without their flagship. The Aelorian and human fleets pressed forward with renewed vigor, dismantling the convoy with precision and ferocity. Rena's heart swelled with pride as they fought side by side with their human allies. The realization washed over her. They were no longer strangers but comrades united by a common goal. As the final Zarthan ship fell silent in the void, Rena and her squad celebrated their victory. Cheers and laughter filled the comms, a moment of triumph against the darkness that had threatened both their worlds. Returning to Aeloria, the fleet was greeted as heroes, the atmosphere charged with excitement and relief. The Alliance had not only survived but thrived in the face of adversity. Together, they had struck a blow against the Zarthan Empire. In the royal chamber, Queen Thalia awaited them, her expression radiant with pride. "You have done well," she declared as Rena and her fellow pilots entered the room. "We have not only proven our capabilities, but solidified our bond with humanity today. We have forged a new path for our peoples." As the room erupted in cheers, Rena felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had overcome not only a formidable enemy, but the barriers that had separated them. She exchanged glances with her fellow pilots and the human general. They were no longer just allies but family, bound by shared struggles and victories. The future was still uncertain, but together they had proven that unity could triumph over even the greatest of challenges. As they prepared to face whatever lay ahead, Rena felt a renewed sense of hope in her heart. They were ready to rise against the darkness together, side by side, as a united force, in a galaxy that needed them more than ever.